I've been through the dark side, not saying that it won't happen again, but I just know how to just maintain my positivity, and kind of separate myself from what is negative. Some things you just got to keep private, and some things you just don't have to be involved with.
At 54, R&B singer Tweet finally confirms what really happened. She had a top 10 Billboard hit, a cosign from Missy Elliott, a sound that felt like poetry soaked in southern heat. But almost overnight, she was gone.
Because some people have a problem with you being happy too.
Now she's exposing it all. How Missy Elliott allegedly blacklisted her from the industry. Her scandalous affair with a megachurch pastor who quoted, "These hoes ain't loyal" from the pulpit.
We have grown into an incredible friendship. I call her my last lady.
And why she's sworn off church forever after being betrayed by the same religious community that already cast her out once as a pregnant teen.
I'm a mother so young, being in the church. I got sat down, if anything. If I was in the choir, I couldn't sing in the choir no more.
Charlene Keys, known to the world as Tweet, was born the youngest of 5 in Rochester, New York, into a household steeped in church tradition. Singing wasn't just encouraged, it was a requirement. The church was her first stage, and gospel music was her first language. By the time she could form full sentences, she was harmonizing in the choir with her siblings and mastering the kind of vocal control that even grown adults struggled to achieve.
But I, grew up in the church. My parents were both in gospel quartet groups. It's a place where it was a foundation for me as far as musically and as everything else in my life.
But while the church nurtured her voice, it also policed her spirit. Secular music was forbidden. Anything outside of gospel was considered worldly, dangerous even. That didn't stop Charlene. Like many rebellious preacher's kids, she found ways to explore the world beyond hymns. When she finally got her own radio, everything changed. Late at night, she tuned into sounds that awakened something deeper in her. Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder. The soul of R&B became a secret lifeline. Then, life took an unexpected turn. At just 18 years old, Charlene became a mother. And in the eyes of her church community, the golden girl had fallen from grace. She wasn't just judged, she was removed. No longer welcome in the choir, no longer the pride of Sunday service. The whispers were loud. The silence from those who once praised her was even louder.
I'm a mother so young, being in the church. I got sat down, if anything. If I was in the choir, I couldn't sing in the choir no more. And I was ashamed because back then, that was something you don't do. You don't talk about, you don't do anything.
Faced with judgment and limited options, Charlene made an impossible decision. She left her daughter in the care of her parents and moved south to chase a dream. One that most people in her situation would have already given up on. She ended up in Panama City, Florida, working odd jobs, scraping by, and using any free moment to write music and look for opportunities. Then came a break. She auditioned for an all-female R&B group called Suga and landed a spot. Suga wasn't just any group, they were part of Swing Mob, a musical collective created by Devontae Swing of Jodeci. It was like a boot camp for rising stars. Suga lived, ate, rehearsed, and recorded under one roof with future legends. Timbaland, Genuine, Playa, Magoo, and Missy Elliott. They were all broke. They were all hungry. And Charlene, now nicknamed Tweet because of her high-pitched laugh, was literally starving. Suga recorded for years under Devontae's guidance, but never released an album. And after 5 years of waiting, Tweet was still stuck, broke, exhausted, divorced from the father of her daughter, and back in Florida with no label, no hits, and no hope. Depression hit hard. She picked up drinking and smoking to cope. There were days she couldn't get out of bed, nights she didn't want to see the next morning. At one point, she seriously considered ending her life. Then the phone rang. It was Missy. Tweet hadn't heard from her in years. But now Missy was a superstar, working on her third album, and she hadn't forgotten the voice that once sang next to her in Sugar.
I always call her my guardian angel because she came at the time when I was ready to go out. I didn't want to be here anymore. You know, being a mother, you want to be able to support and take care of your child, and I couldn't do it, and it hurt my heart.
Missy asked Tweet to come sing background vocals. Just like that, Tweet was back in the studio, recording vocals for tracks that would go on to appear on multiple major albums. The momentum was back. Slowly but surely, the doors started opening again. When Tweet re-entered the studio at Missy Elliott's invitation, she wasn't the same woman she had been during her Sugar days. She was broken, quiet, and spiritually exhausted. But as soon as she stepped to the mic, something clicked. The voice was still there, haunting, honest, and smooth like silk. And Missy knew exactly what to do with it. What started as background vocals for Missy's third album quickly snowballed. Missy brought Tweet deeper into the creative process, writing, harmonizing, shaping melodies. Tweet was more than just a vocalist. She was an artist, a storyteller. Missy saw it, Timbaland saw it, and soon the rest of the industry would too. In 2002, Tweet officially signed to Missy's label, the Goldmine Inc., under Elektra Records. Her debut single, Oops, Oh My, was unlike anything on the radio. Written by Tweet and Missy and produced by Timbaland, it was sultry, confessional, and controversial. A woman singing openly about self-pleasure. That wasn't common in R&B, especially not from someone with church roots, but it was real. It was her.
Oops, there goes my shirt up over my head.
The world responded immediately. Oops, Oh My debuted in January 2002 and climbed the Billboard Hot 100, eventually reaching number 7. It hit number 1 on the R&B chart by April. People couldn't get enough of the track, or the woman behind it. Tweet had officially arrived. Her debut album, Southern Hummingbird, dropped soon after and debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200. Critics praised its vulnerability. Fans felt like they were being invited into Tweet's diary, and Missy Elliott, credited as executive producer, was celebrated for ushering in yet another powerhouse voice. The follow-up single, Call Me, also performed well, cracking the top 40 on the Hot 100 and the top 10 on the R&B charts. By the summer of 2002, Tweet wasn't just a singer. She was a star. She started making appearances on talk shows, red carpets, and even secured acting cameos in the UPN sitcom The Parkers and the dance film Honey.
Michael, thank you so much. You're welcome.
But with the spotlight came pressure. Tweet had always been shy, more comfortable behind the scenes than in front of flashing cameras. She didn't crave fame the way others did. She just wanted to make music that meant something. But now, she was being pushed in front of the world. Stylists, interviews, publicists. The machine had kicked in, and Tweet started to feel like a product. Behind the scenes, she was still adjusting to success. Being a mother, being sober, being under the microscope. And with her past trauma still close to the surface, it wasn't easy. Every photo shoot, every performance, every public appearance required armor. And even with Missy guiding her, Tweet often felt overwhelmed by the pace and pressure of it all. Still, she kept going. She toured, she collaborated. And when she had the chance, she continued writing music that spoke from the soul. But something changed the moment her second album entered production. Behind the scenes, Elektra was undergoing a major merger, the kind of corporate shakeup that rarely favors artists, especially those still finding their footing. The team that had believed in Southern Hummingbird was gone. And the new executives? They didn't know Tweet. They didn't understand her music. They didn't seem to care. Despite Missy's continued involvement and Timbaland's production work, Tweet's sophomore album, It's Me Again, was repeatedly delayed. The lead single, Turn the Lights Off, dropped in late 2004, but failed to chart on the Hot 100, a far cry from her debut success. By the time the full album was released in March 2005, the momentum was gone. And the promotion? Barely there. Tweet had gone from a rising star to an afterthought, and she couldn't help but notice most of the people who had supported her at the beginning, the same people who helped build her sound, her look, her identity, were suddenly silent. That silence cut deep. But Tweet didn't give up. She regrouped. She found new management. She signed with Matthew Knowles and Music World. And by 2007, she had a new label deal with Umbrella Recordings. It looked like another shot at the dream. What she didn't know was that heartbreak, both professional and personal, was waiting just around the corner. By 2007, Tweet had been through enough career drama to make most people walk away. But she wasn't ready to give up. With a fresh deal under Umbrella Recordings, a new management team led by Matthew Knowles, yes, Beyoncé's father, and a third album in the works, the comeback was officially in motion. But the optimism didn't last long. A couple of promotional singles were quietly released. They didn't gain traction. Fans were confused. There was no real rollout, no media push, and behind the scenes, Tweet was again caught in a storm of industry instability, this time brought on by tragedy. The founder of her new label, Umbrella Recordings, passed away suddenly. The label's leadership was thrown into chaos, and any momentum she had built vanished. It wasn't just bad timing, it was devastating. Once again, Tweet found herself stuck in limbo. No album release date, no clear communication, no budget. The label wasn't moving, and Tweet couldn't move without them. The silence was deafening, and the longer it went on, the more obvious it became. Tweet was being buried again, not by her own choices, but by the people in control of her music. At the same time, her personal life was falling apart. Alcohol and cigarettes became her daily routine. She was depressed again. And to make matters worse, the man she was dating at the time, someone she thought she could build with, had a baby with another woman. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it reopened old wounds that she had worked hard to cover. Tweet hit rock bottom. She went back to her parents' house in Florida. The same house she once ran from now became her safe space. No label, no album, no partner. Just Tweet, her daughter, and the haunting question: was it all for nothing? But even in the dark, she didn't stop creating. In 2012, with no major label backing her, Tweet took matters into her own hands. She began uploading unreleased tracks to SoundCloud and her website. Demos, full songs, broken verses. She shared them raw, unfiltered, unfinished, and emotional. The fans responded. They had missed her voice, and in many ways, Tweet realized, they'd never stopped listening. In 2013, she released an independent EP titled Simply Tweet. It was just 5 songs, but they were honest, stripped down, and soulful. Critics took notice. Real R&B fans celebrated it, and suddenly the whispers of a true return started to grow louder. Then, in 2016, the album that seemed impossible finally arrived. Charlene, her third official studio album, dropped. It was named after her birth name as a symbol of reclamation. No more hiding behind a persona. No more label meddling. No more silence. The album didn't chart high, but it didn't need to. Rolling Stone called it one of the top 20 R&B albums of the year. And for Tweet, that was enough. More importantly, during the making of the project, she reunited with Missy Elliott, the woman whose phone call had saved her life years earlier. Missy co-wrote songs and brought back that chemistry the two had shared in the beginning. Tweet turned down an offer to join R&B divas so she could focus on finishing Charlene. For her, the choice was clear: music over cameras, art over drama. It seemed finally like she was back on solid ground. But behind the scenes, the music industry was changing, and Tweet wasn't sure she liked where it was going. After Tweet hit rock bottom, abandoned by her label, betrayed by her partner, and deep in depression, music stopped being her escape. It became a trigger. For the first time, she questioned whether it was worth fighting for anymore. Her third album was trapped in limbo. Her label had collapsed. Her personal life was in ruins. Alcohol and cigarettes had become daily habits, and spiritually, she was lost.
I was in a relationship and we broke up, and the only way I could cope with the breakup was to pick up a cigarette and smoke.
She needed something, anything to help her feel whole again. So she turned back to the only place she had ever been taught to find healing, the church. It wasn't easy going back. The last time she was in a pew, she had been a scared teenager, pregnant, judged, and cast out by the very community that claimed to preach grace. But now, as an adult woman and mother, she was looking for restoration, not approval. And that search led her to Pastor Jamal Bryant. Jamal was everything the modern church admired: a polished speaker, charismatic leader, and prominent figure in both spiritual and political spaces. He was also the ex-husband of Real Housewives of Potomac star Giselle Bryant, and a man whose reputation had been marred by scandal more than once. Still, he and Tweet clicked instantly. They began quietly dating. It wasn't a flashy Hollywood romance. It was rooted in faith and mutual understanding. For a while, it looked like Tweet had found her peace. She returned to music slowly and with purpose. Charlene, her third studio album, named after her birth name, was released in 2016, and around that same time, her relationship with Jamal became public. During an appearance on the TV show The Preachers, Jamal proudly called her his last lady. The gesture felt significant. For the first time, Tweet wasn't just somebody's artist or somebody's ex. She was somebody's choice.
We have grown into an incredible friendship. I call her my last lady.
But not everyone celebrated their union. Some of Jamal's congregation members openly criticized their pastor's relationship with an R&B singer, questioning her godliness and public image. Tweet clapped back, "Dealing with church people that say because I'm an R&B singer, I'm not godly enough to be with him. It's crazy." The scrutiny was familiar. It echoed the same shame she'd felt as a teen mom, the same silence she endured from gospel leaders who refused to acknowledge her talent once her life didn't fit their image of holiness. She tried to rise above it, but the backlash was only one part of the pressure. Around this same time, Jamal Bryant was facing scandals of his own. In 2014, he drew national outrage for quoting Chris Brown's lyrics, "These hoes ain't loyal," during a sermon. It was a message about disloyalty, he claimed. Don't critique a quote when you never heard the message. 20 seconds of a 30-minute message is an incomplete assessment. Then, in 2020, Jamal made headlines again after tweeting, "You can't have $1 million dream with a minimum wage work ethic." The post landed poorly, especially during a pandemic, and was widely condemned as classist and tone-deaf. Jamal later deleted the tweet and said it was taken out of context, adding, "During this pandemic, it has been our service workers who kept US going." There were other headlines too. Allegations from bloggers about a secret child he fathered with a woman in his congregation. Jamal denied those accusations, calling them 1000% untrue and threatening legal action. But the damage to his public image lingered. Tweet never commented directly on any of Jamal's scandals. She remained private until the day she decided to walk away from the relationship and the church entirely. In a live video with her daughter, she said, "I will not do church anymore. I love God. I have a relationship with God, but you won't see me in nobody's church house. I'm not giving nobody my tithes. I'm not giving 10% to nobody. Period. That's it. Sorry." It wasn't bitterness, it was clarity. She continued, The church prioritizes money and power over people. That's just not what I believe in anymore. Tweet's faith never left her, but her trust in institutions, in pastors, in organized religion, in so-called spiritual authority, was gone. She had given the church a second chance, and it had disappointed her once again. This time, she walked away on her own terms. For fans who had followed Tweet since the early 2000s, one question had lingered for nearly 2 decades. What happened between her and Missy Elliott? When Tweet first rose to fame, Missy was right beside her, not just as a collaborator, but as a mentor, friend, and the person who gave her the platform to sing her truth. Tweet was introduced to the world through the Goldmine Inc., Missy's label. Their first hit together, Oops, Oh My, was a cultural phenomenon, and Tweet's debut album, Southern Hummingbird, was both critically acclaimed and commercially successful, thanks in large part to Missy's executive production and support. But after that, something shifted. Tweet's second album, It's Me Again, was released in 2005, and even though Missy and Timbaland were still listed as collaborators, something felt off. The project was delayed, under-promoted, and once the label merger happened, the entire support system around Tweet seemed to vanish. What's more, Missy herself seemed to vanish from Tweet's world too. Fans noticed. For years, the two women weren't seen together. Missy's later projects never featured Tweet, and Tweet's subsequent albums, Simply Tweet Charlene, were largely created without Missy's input. It didn't take long before rumors swirled. Had there been a fallout? Was there tension behind the scenes? And worse, had Missy used her influence to blacklist the very artist she once helped create? The speculation only grew louder with time. Missy remained a powerful figure in the music industry, beloved, connected, and well-respected. But Tweet? She was nowhere near the charts. Despite undeniable talent, she couldn't seem to break through again. Some fans believed there was more to the silence than just drifting apart. Tweet never named names. She never aired out grievances or confirmed the rumors, but in several interviews, she spoke just enough to let people read between the lines. "I've been misunderstood," she once said. "It wasn't about lack of music. It was about the politics. The doors that don't open for you when certain people stop calling your name." In another conversation, she said, "People think if you disappear, it's because you weren't good enough. But that's not always the truth. Sometimes it's about access. If you're not in the right circles, if you don't play the game, you're gone." To many, that sounded like confirmation, especially when paired with Tweet's absence from nearly every Missy-led project post-2005. And given how tightly knit Missy's creative circle has always been, it stood out that Tweet, once central to that circle, had suddenly been erased from it. Even when the two reunited briefly during the making of Charlene in 2016, the collaboration felt more like a passing moment than a full-fledged return to their dynamic. Tweet explained that the album's title, her birth name, was intentional. It was about claiming herself again, separating her legacy from the machine that first packaged it. "I'm Charlene before I'm Tweet. I needed to remember that." Despite everything, the lost time, the halted momentum, the rumors, Tweet never allowed bitterness to define her. She stayed close to her daughter. She became a grandmother. She mentored young artists. She turned down reality TV opportunities that didn't align with her spirit. And she kept creating music, even if the industry no longer amplified it. In 2020, she announced she was reuniting with her former girl group, Suga, and working on releasing never-before-heard music from their swing mob days. She even confirmed that Devontae Swing, the same man who once gave them their shot, was on board. The comeback wasn't about fame, it was about reclaiming every version of herself that had been buried by industry politics, heartbreak, and silence. Tweet also took that year to speak honestly about her frustrations with the direction of the music industry. "I feel like female artists have to be over in order to win in today's music era. Very very all of those things, which I'm not gonna do. She wasn't interested in fitting in anymore. She was only interested in being herself. And maybe that's what makes Tweet's story so powerful. She wasn't a chart chaser. She wasn't an industry puppet. She was an artist who survived, who lived, who came back from depression, rejection, and near death, and still had a voice worth hearing. At 54, she doesn't need validation. Not from labels, not from fans, not even from Missy Elliott. Because Tweet's legacy was never about the industry. It was about the woman behind the mic, Charlene Keys, and the truth she was brave enough to keep singing even when no one else wanted to hear it. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.